Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Um, this amendment would restore states' rights, which are being preempted by this legislation. It would set as a baseline the regulations adopted by President Reagan for protections in areas that are impacted by this sort of mining. But it would allow states to exceed that baseline. The Reagan rule was much more, protective than the Bush era rule, and would make for at least a minimal floor to protect public health, downstream health, municipalities and others, and people living in and around and adjacent to these mining activities. But it would allow states to exceed that. The pending bill here, takes away that state's rights. It says, no, you have to live under the Bush rule, even if you've adopted state laws, out of concern for health of your people. The federal government knows better, and we're going to take this rule issued at the very end of the Bush administration. That's why we call it a midnight rule, and a lot of these things are done by the lamest of lame duck administrations on the way out the door.
Will the gentleman yield?
I would be happy to yield to the gentleman.
The rule in question took 5 years to produce. It was promulgated at the end, toward the end of the calendar year, September, October. It's ridiculous to call that a midnight rule. I yield back. Well,
I would respond to the gentleman in that, I don't know what they did during those 5 years. They probably shared, some beverages with executives from the coal mining companies, because it's a dream rule for them, but it is not sufficient to protect public health, water quality, and any other relationship to terrestrial species, whether they be human or otherwise. So this is, an egregious thing. And to impose that on states, I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman to understand why he wants to impose it on states and why he wouldn't leave states the flexibility to have higher standards.
I don't know if the gentleman was at the hearings, field hearings in the past, like in West Virginia, and here in this room, where representatives from these states say, we want this legislation. We don't like what Office of Surface Mining is doing. So but we're working with the states on this.
Well, reclaiming my time, we haven't yet seen a rule out of the Obama administration. I guess they're going to take even longer than the Bush administration to promulgate a rule, because I think they've been working on it since shortly after the president's election. I'm not sure when they initiated the rulemaking. It was sometime, I think, that first year. So they are in the 5th year, but perhaps they're going to be even more careful than George Bush was in his 5-year contemplation of the regulation. But we don't know what it is. So we're going to preempt it before we know what it is, and we're going to mandate. That still doesn't address the question of, you have perhaps representatives of one state saying, we don't care if you preempt us, and we don't care if you mandate the Bush rule on us. But I assume there are other states that perhaps wouldn't take that position, and also, states do change. Representatives, legislatures, governors change, and this would preempt those states. Let's say in West Virginia they found that there were dire problems impacting one of the major urban areas downstream, and that raised a new level of concern, not just the impoverished coal mining areas, and they wanted to promulgate tougher rules on these activities. They couldn't do it under this legislation. So with that, I would yield back the balance of my time.